Okay, so here we go. We're going to talk about weathering today. Now remember that you have two words that go together, weathering and erosion. Weathering means you're breaking down a rock into pieces. Erosion means those pieces are moving somewhere else. So today we're just focusing on the weather piece of this. So that means that we're going to talk about the different ways that rocks can get broken down into little tiny pieces, which we call sediment. Okay. So weathering is the process by which rock materials are broken down by the action of physical or chemical processes. So as you see in the picture, that used to be solid rock going all the way across, but more than likely water has dissolved some of those minerals, and then rocks have fallen down the slopes and different things have broken down those rocks into tiny smaller pieces, which has caused the valleys that you see in the picture. So we have two different types of weathering. We have mechanical weathering and we have chemical weathering. Mechanical weathering is breaking down the rock by something physical. That means something has to literally break off the piece of rock. So we're going to look at a list of a few things that could possibly do that. The first one is ice. Now, water expands when it freezes. So if you're in an area that has a climate that gets below freezing during the winter time, you're going to have a lot of what's called ice wedging. Okay, so freezing and thawing makes the rocks expand. So if the rock has a crack in it, water gets down in that crack, then it gets below freezing, that water expands, which is going to crack open that rock just a little bit more. And every time water gets in and freezes, it's going to open that up and widen that crack even more until that piece of rock breaks off. Number two is abrasion. So if you are on your skateboard and you fall off and you skin your knee on the ground, that's called an abrasion. So anytime you have two objects that have friction against each other, you're going to wear away some of the surface on both of those objects. So if you fall off your skateboard, land on the concrete, then your skin comes in contact with the concrete and you're going to wear away some of your skin on your knee, okay, which isn't going to be pleasant for you. But that's an abrasion. So you are literally weathering away your skin when you get those scratches from injuries like that. So number three says wind, water, and gravity, but really those bullet points are different types of abrasion. So we can have wind that's blowing sand or really any kind of sediment against a rock, against your skin, against any other object, and it's going to rub and it's going to take layers of whatever that object is, your skin or the rock, and they're going to go away. They're going to be weathered away. You can have water, like in a stream or a river, that's rolling pebbles against the bottom, so they kind of tumble downstream. And that's going to knock off pieces. Every time that rock or pebble hits another pebble, pieces are going to come off. So it's another form of abrasion because it's friction of two objects hitting each other. The third bullet point, gravity causes rock to fall on top of each other. If you've got a rock that's at the top of a mountain, it's going to tumble downhill. As it tumbles downhill, it's going to hit the other rocks. There's your abrasion part of it. Okay, two objects hitting each other, causing pieces to fall off. That's abrasion. So even though this says wind, water, and gravity, all three of those things go with abrasion as well. Number four, plants. Roots grow, and they're going to go through the ground, and regardless of what's underground, it's going to go through it. So if that root from the plant finds a rock, a crack in a rock, then it's going to grow into that crack in the rock, and it's going to keep growing, and it's going to keep breaking apart that rock so that that root can grow and get longer. Okay, that'll eventually break those rocks as well. And then animals do something very similar where they burrow through the soil. So you see the picture of the mole right there on the right side that is burrowing and digging down through the ground. So as it digs, then it's going to break rocks along the way. Even smaller animals can do that too, like ants and worms. Anything that's going to burrow through the ground is going to break up some rocks underground. Okay, the second kind of weathering that we have is chemical weathering. So again, it's still weathering, so it's still going to break down rocks, but this time it's going to break it down through probably dissolving or some sort of a chemical reaction. Okay, now when we say that something's dissolving, think about putting salt in water. Okay, if you take a spoonful of salt, you put it in the water, it looks like it disappears, but it's just dissolved in the water. So that's what happens to the rocks. It gets dissolved into the water because rocks are made of minerals, and minerals will dissolve when they get mixed with water. So, number one, we just covered, water's dissolving the minerals. Number two, acid rain. Again, very much like water, but it's got an acidic quality to it, so it's going to dissolve the rocks even faster, which is what you see with the caves down there on the bottom left side. Okay, you have groundwater acid, very similar to acid rain, but it's through the groundwater. And then number four, you have acids in living things. Lichens attach themselves to things like rocks and tree trunks, and it's actually a living animal that produces an acid in its little connection points. It's not really roots, but the connection point to where it attaches to that rock or tree. And that acid that's from that connection point will dissolve whatever it's attached to. And number five, you have air. It's also called oxidation. Okay, so the air mixes in with moisture, and usually you need to have iron for that or a metal attached to it, and you get rust. So rust is a completely different substance than that metal of the car that you see in that picture or the metal of any other object that's rusting. The orange color is the oxidation. So oxidation and rust are pretty much the same thing. Oxidation is just the scientific word for it. Okay, so we have something called differential weathering, and it basically means different things weather at different speeds. So anything that's soft is going to wear away faster. Okay, well, that makes logical sense. If it's softer, it's going to get broken down quicker than something that's solid and hard. So the example is Devil's Tower in Wyoming. Okay, it used to be a volcano, and you can see in the picture where they've drawn in what the volcano used to look like. And the outside of the volcano that's worn away, it was loose rock and ash. But the center part that's still standing there is solid rock. Okay, that's where the inside of the volcano was magma, but over time it cooled, and it cooled into one solid igneous rock. And so it's not going to wear away as fast as the small loose rock would that made up the sides of the volcano. As far as the shape of the rocks go, the larger the surface area, meaning the wider the rock, really the bigger the rock, the faster the weathering will break down the rock because it's got more area for things to hit it or for the rain to get on it and dissolve it. Okay, smaller fragments, teeny tiny fragments are going to break down faster than larger fragments just because there's not as much of them, and if there's not as much of them, they're going to go away quicker. Chemical weathering is generally faster in warm, humid climates because if you have moisture mixed in with that oxygen and then the metal, then that is the perfect combination for rust. Okay, and rust is oxidation. And then in the cold climates, obviously, anywhere it goes below freezing, you're going to have some ice wedging going on that's going to break open those rocks. All right, last but not least, looking at a mountain. If you're at the top of the mountain, the peak, then you're going to get a lot more wind, you're going to get more water like rainstorms coming through, you're going to have colder temperatures, so that's actually going to weather away faster. Okay, and then you have the steepness of the mountains where water is going to run down it and carry the sediment with it, which is going to help dissolve more of that rock, which in turn is going to make it weather faster. Okay, so that's the end of tonight's notes, and bring them to class tomorrow.